Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 5090 June 25 paper 2-1 O-level biology. As we all know, this paper is for 1 hour and 45 minutes and you need to finish this in time. This is for 80 marks and there is no choice in it and you have to do the whole paper. The total marks is 80. The number of marks for each question or part of the question is shown in the brackets. You must look at that and see appropriately that you answer it for according to the number of marks. If there are 3 marks, there must be 3 mark scheme points. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Question 1. Large molecules in cells are made from smaller molecules. Complete table 1.1 to show which small molecules make up each large molecule. Choose the small molecules from the list. Amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, glycerol, nucleotides. And this is for 3 marks. Look at that. So proteins are made up of what? They're made up of amino acids. Cellulose is made up of glucose. And lipids are made up of fatty acids and glycerol. If you didn't write glycerol, well, you won't get the mark. And please remember, there are no 0.5 marks in biology. So this is what you would have written: amino acids, glucose, fatty acids, and glycerol, and would get the 3 marks for it. DNA is found in the nucleus of each cell. Put a tick next to any statement that correctly describes the structure of DNA. A DNA molecule has 4 strands. No, it doesn't have 4 strands. Each strand is made up of a chain of nucleotides. Yes, that's correct. Each nucleotide contains a base, a sugar, and an amino acid. No. It's a base, a sugar, and phosphates. Each nucleotides are made of a ribose, DNA deoxyribose or a ribose sugar, and an adenine base, and 3 phosphates. So this is also wrong, so we're not going to write anything. The bases always pair up in the same way, ATCG. Yes, that's correct. Bonds between sugar molecules hold the strands together. No, I'm sorry, that's not right. It's the phosphodiester bond between the phosphate and the sugar. So if you don't know that, you need to revise that. Explain how the sequence of bases in a DNA molecule controls how a cell functions. So basically, the DNA codes for proteins by determining the order of amino acids. And the order of amino acid determines the structure or the function of the protein. These proteins may act as enzymes or hormones or hemoglobin. So DNA dictates the sequence of amino acids, the order or the sequence of an amino acid, and that amino acid sequence then results in that folding. So if the amino acid, say there's number 5 amino acid, there are 20 amino acids, and then in which sequence are they going to join? So if you join if we say this is the 5th amino acid, and 6th, then the 7th, then the 5th again, and then the 10th, and then the 12th. So this is dictated by the DNA, the sequence of amino acids. And when this folds, is going to result in something like this. So this is going to be the active site of the enzyme. This is going to be the active site of the enzyme. So if this was not in the right sequence, then we won't get an enzyme with the correct active site. And if the active site is not correct, then the enzyme is not functional. It's a non-functional enzyme. So how will we write this? I mean, writing is also quite an issue amongst the present generation. You say you know it, but you don't know how to write it. Frankly speaking, you don't know it. If you knew it, you would know how to write it as well. You've all been studying in English. It's not a foreign language to you. So DNA base sequence codes for proteins. By determining the order of amino acid, this determines the structure and function of the protein. These proteins may act as enzymes. Then coming to the second question, figure 2.1 shows a food web from a pond. So we have water weed, we have algae, which is a photosynthetic microorganism. Then you have the insect larvae, freshwater snail, and then the larvae are eaten by the frog. And the larvae and the freshwater snail are eaten by the water shrew. And the water shrew is eaten by the hawk. The water shrew is also eaten by the snake. And the frog is also eaten by the snake. So the snake eats 2 organisms. The hawk eats also 2 organisms, the shrew and the snake. So what are we saying in a food chain is the flow of energy from one organism to the other. Now coming to the question, state the source of energy for this food chain. Sunlight. If you said sun, that's fine. If you said sunlight, that's fine as well. Without sunlight, we would be nowhere. We would be dead, in fact. Complete table 2.1 by writing the number of different organisms in this food web that fit each description. The first one has been done for you. Number of different organisms. Producers, there are two. Secondary consumers, how many are there? There are two. Secondary consumers are also two. This says number. Then it says carnivores. So what are the carnivores which eat other animals? This one eats an animal, this one eats an animal, and this one eats an animal. So there are four carnivores. There are four carnivores. Now it says the next question is the hawk feeds at two different trophic levels. Use figure 2.1 to explain this statement. The hawk feeds at two trophic levels. Okay, let's look at that now. Now the hawk feeds at two trophic levels. What does that mean? It means, you see, this is the producer, one trophic level, then two, then three, and then four. So this is the hawk is at the fourth trophic level. So when it feeds on water shrews, it is feeding at the fourth trophic level and is a tertiary consumer. The food has passed through three organisms, right? So plants is the first trophic level, second trophic level, third trophic level, and then this is the fourth trophic level. Now, when you're looking at another situation, when it feeds on snakes, it is feeding on the fifth trophic level. So this is one, this is two, this is three, this is four, and then this is fifth. So when it feeds on snakes, it is feeding at the fifth trophic level, and this is a quaternary consumer. The food has passed through four organisms. So how do you write it? It's very simple. When feeds on snakes is the fifth trophic level. When feeds on water shrew is the fourth trophic level. Please remember, this is not a test of English. We don't look at your sentences or your construction of the sentence. We look at the content of it. It's a biology paper. It's not an English language paper. Then coming to the B part of the question, scientists have studied how water shrews feed on freshwater snails and insect larvae. The shrews dive underwater to collect food. What does dive mean? What does it entail? It will entail a lot of muscle work, muscle contraction. When you're swimming, a lot of muscle is working. Explain why shrews need more oxygen when they dive underwater, which is very cold. So you've got to understand they're giving you some information. Why do they need more oxygen? They need more oxygen because more respiration. So oxygen is needed for respiration. Respiration releases energy. There you get your 2 marks. So immediately when oxygen is there, you have to remember it's for respiration. Oxygen is needed for respiration. Respiration releases energy. Shrews regulate their body temperature, so that's cold water. So they'll have to more energy will have to be released to keep them warm or keep them at their body temperature, and more respiration is needed for increased muscle contraction. But you could have got your 2 marks by just saying oxygen is needed for respiration and respiration releases energy. So a very simple question which you could have confused and not written the proper information and lost marks in this. So oxygen needed for respiration, respiration releases energy and more energy for increased muscle contraction and also more energy needed to regulate the body temperature. Part 2, scientists have found that shrews contain high levels of a special protein that can store oxygen. This allows the shrews to stay underwater for longer to collect food. Explain how the ability of shrews to store oxygen may have developed by natural selection. That's very easy. Natural selection, what happens? There's a variation. So there must have been water shrews with more or less protein, some with more protein, some with less protein. Now, water shrews are competing for food. Water shrews that have the protein collect more food. These shrews are more likely to survive. These shrews are more likely to reproduce and they will pass on the allele for that specific protein to the next generation. Just like the upcoming AI generation, all the children who are smart will start studying AI at a very early age and they will be success stories. But if people go in the old school of thought, then they would not be very success stories. Well, that is natural selection. People who will change with the changing times. Of course, here it's a different situation. There it's a mutation. So water shrews have different levels of protein. So a mutation occurs and one of them or few of them produce more protein. Now the water shrews will of course, what are they? They are competing for food. So the ones that have more protein can collect more food. So they're more successful. These shrews are more likely to survive. If they survive, then these shrews are more likely to reproduce. So all the generation which is arising from those say 10 or 20 shrews which had that extra protein, now all of them will be success because they can collect more food. And when they reproduce, they pass on the allele. Please don't say gene. Allele is an alternative form of a gene. That specific allele for the protein to the next generation. Like if my mother had curly hair, so she's passed on the curly hair allele to me. And so now I also have curly hair. So it's the allele. Please remember, we all have the gene, but we have different alleles. Okay, so wording it now. Mutation results in more protein in some water shrews. Water shrews competing for food. Water shrews with protein collect more food. These water shrews are more likely to survive because they are more smart and they can collect more food. These shrews more likely to reproduce. They will pass on the alleles to the next generation. The word is allele, not gene. Please remember that. Now coming to question number 3, figure 3.1 shows the human digestive system and we've got all this labeled. A is the buccal cavity, B is the liver, C is the gallbladder, D is the stomach, F is the pancreas, E is the small intestine, and D is the large intestine. In each box, write the letter that has been used to label these parts of the digestive system. The part where starch digestion starts is A in the mouth, and the part where protein digestion starts will be G in the stomach. Describe the role of organs B and C in lipid digestion. B and C. What is B? B is the liver and C is the gallbladder. B is the liver and C is the gallbladder. So it says describe the roles of organs B and C in lipid digestion, and that's 3 marks. So B or the liver produces bile, the gallbladder, which is C, stores the bile, and bile emulsifies lipids. So it speeds up lipid digestion. Basically 3 points. Liver produces bile, gallbladder stores bile, bile emulsifies lipids. Simple. You didn't have to go into any more details. It was a very, very easy and a simple question. So simple wording, liver produces bile, gallbladder stores bile, and bile emulsifies lipids. Emulsification means it breaks down large lipid globules into smaller globules so that then the lipase can act on them and immediately break it down. It isn't going to take a lot of time there. Now coming to question number part B, celiac disease affects several million people in the world. It is linked to a substance called gluten that is found in some foods. Figure 3.2 shows a section through organ E in a healthy person and in a person with celiac disease. So this is the healthy person and this is the person with celiac disease. Now the question is, if a child with celiac disease is not treated, their growth may be reduced. Use figure 3.2 to explain why. For growth, what do you need? You need nutrients. So what is, now it says, how maybe if a child explain using figure 3.2. So 3.2 shows what? That villi are smaller or they have level surface area, less food material or nutrients will be absorbed into the blood. Now nutrients means glucose and amino acids. So less amino acids, so less proteins will be obtained which are needed for growth. You had to take it to the growth part. So because we need proteins for growth. So if the food is, there's going to be less amino acids which are absorbed, so then of course we're going to have less proteins which are absolutely essential for growth. So how do we word it? Will I have smaller, less nutrients absorbed, less amino acids, so less proteins, and proteins are needed for growth. Part two of the question says scientists are investigating a new treatment for celiac disease. They have produced an enzyme that will digest gluten when it reaches organ E. When it reaches organ E, they plan to put the enzyme into a tablet which can be swallowed. To make this treatment work, the tablet must have a coating that will dissolve in alkaline conditions but not in acid conditions. Explain why. You see, there's a lot of acid in the stomach. So we don't want it to start working in the stomach. So it needs to resist the acid in the stomach. Other the enzyme would be damaged or denatured in the stomach. So it will be released in E, the small intestine, which is alkaline. We don't want it to be released in the stomach. Because it said in the question, it said they plan to put the enzyme in a tablet which can be swallowed. To make this treatment work, the tablet must have a coating that will dissolve in alkaline conditions but not in acid conditions. Explain why. So it needs to resist the acid in the stomach, otherwise the enzyme will be denatured in the stomach before it even reaches the small intestine. So release the small intestine which is alkaline. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Question number 4. Transmissible diseases are caused by pathogens. Draw a line from each transmissible disease to the type of pathogen that caused the disease. AIDS is caused by a virus, so we do this. And cholera is caused by a bacterium, so you do this. And malaria is caused by a protophus, you do this. Then it says D part 1, complete these sentences about cholera by writing words in the gap. When the cholera pathogen is inside the small intestine, it produces a toxin. This results in the secretion of chloride ions into the small intestine. The water potential inside the small intestine will decrease. Too many chloride ions will decrease the water potential, causing water to move into the intestine. So 3 marks for that. Now there's a bit of maths, which we all are very scared of. In 2017, the World Health Organization estimated that 95,000 people die from cholera each year. The World Health Organization set up a project to reduce this number of deaths by 95% by 2030. If the project is successful, calculate the maximum number of cholera deaths in 2030 and space for working. So my way of doing this, maybe you have a better way of doing it. I'm not sure. My maths is not very good. I'm sure your maths is much better. So the answer was 4,750, and if you got that right, you got 2 marks for that. Part 3 of the question says the World Health Organization recommends vaccines to protect people from cholera and describe how vaccination can make people immune to a disease. 4 marks. The weakened form of the pathogen is given in a vaccination. What do we give? We give the weakened form, or you can say harmless form of the pathogen is given. This stimulates production of antibodies by the lymphocytes. Memory cells are produced, and if God forbid after some time the live pathogen enters, then the antibodies are rapidly produced and destroy the pathogen, so the person does not suffer from cholera. So how vaccination can help it? You give him the vaccine is a weakened form of the pathogen. So say this is the virus, you give now these antigens, this is the weakened form. So the antigens are now recognized by the lymphocyte, and the lymphocytes have complementary antibodies on it. Now these lymphocytes are going to increase in number, and then some of them will become memory cells and some of them will become plasma cells and produce antibodies. But the ones which are important is the memory cells, because when actually, now this is of course a weakened one, this is not the actual virus, the actual bacteria, sorry, not the virus, is the bacteria, it's the actual bacteria. So it is the weakened bacteria because cholera is caused by a bacterium. So these memory cells which are formed, these are going to remember that, we were invaded by these and we developed antibodies to it. So if this, then the real virus, real bacteria enters, the real cholera bacteria enters, which is live, then of course antibodies would be made against it by the lymphocytes because they've developed the memory cells. So antibodies will be made against it. And then the phagocyte is going to engulf it and destroy it. So the person will not suffer from cholera. So weakened form of the pathogen given, or you can say the harmless form of the pathogen given, and this stimulates the production of antibodies by lymphocytes. In this process, memory cells are produced. That is the important thing. Memory cells have to be produced. And if the live pathogen enters, then antibodies rapidly produced and person does not suffer from cholera. Table 4.1 shows details of a vaccine used by the World Health Organization to protect people from cholera. Doses needed: 2 doses, 1 to 6 weeks apart. Vaccine added to a glass of water. Storage temperature for the vaccine is 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Discuss the practical problems of using the vaccine in different parts of the world. It's a bit difficult, you see. Maybe hard to find the people to give them the second dose. Maybe they move, they migrate, or they move away. And a safe water supply may not be available because you're adding it to water. What if the water is not clean? And would need power for refrigeration, access to a fridge to keep it at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Now, in poor countries, this may not be very easily available. So difficult to find people to give them the second dose. They might have moved away or they might not be living in the same area anymore. And a safe water supply may not be available. And where will you find the electricity to have refrigeration so that they can be kept at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius? That's a very low temperature to be kept at.